Now we are going to talk about eclipse. So we need to know what an eclipse is and how it happens. First of all, talking about eclipse, we are talking about astronomical bodies or the heavenly bodies, such as the planets, the sun, the moon, and satellites. So, eclipse occurs when an astronomical body or a heavenly body casts shadow on another astronomical body. We say that eclipse occurs. Now, we remember that for all the astronomical bodies, the sun is a luminous object. So the sun produces light that shines on all other planets. Now, when this happens, and a planet happens to be in between the sun and another planet, the planet in between the sun, like this is the sun, and we have planet A, and we have planet B. When such thing happens, this planet is an opaque body, and hence, when light shines on this planet, this planet casts shadow on the other planets. So we say that eclipse will occur. So eclipse simply means the shadow that is being casted on a heavenly body by another heavenly body. How many types of eclipse do we have? We have two types of eclipse: the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse. So we are going to take them one after the other. Alright, now we talk about the solar eclipse. The solar eclipse is also called the eclipse of the sun. Solar eclipse occurs when the moon comes between the sun and the earth, thereby casting shadow on the earth. So as you can see from this diagram, this is the sun, which is the luminous object producing the light falling on other planets. And this is the earth. We can now see that the moon here is between the sun and the earth. And when this happens, because the moon is an opaque body, it is going to cast shadow on the earth, on the day parts of the earth. And when that happens, because the sun, which is the luminous object, is now bigger than the moon, it now has to produce the umbra region and the penumbra region. As you can see from here, this region is the umbra region and this region are the penumbra region. So when this happens, eclipse takes place, the people living at these parts are going to experience eclipse of the sun, and hence the people living at the umbra region will experience what is called the total eclipse, which is the total darkness during the day, and the people living around the penumbra region will experience the partial eclipse of the sun. So that is all about the solar eclipse. The second one is the lunar eclipse, which is called the eclipse of the moon. Okay, now finally on eclipse, we are going to look at the eclipse of the moon, which is called the lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse occurs when the earth comes between the sun and the moon. Like we know before now that the moon revolves around the earth. So these are the movement of the moon. Please, this diagram is not telling us that we have more than one or maybe 5 moons. This is just the positions where the moon can be because of its revolution. So now when you take a look at this diagram, we can see that this is the earth and this is the sun, which is the luminous object producing light that is shining on the earth. And when this happens, from what we know from the umbra and the penumbra region, we can see that along these two axes, anything that falls between these points is in the umbra region, and anything that falls between these points are in the penumbra region. So as the moon revolves around the earth, we take a look at this first position. It is not in the region of the shadow that is casted by the earth. Hence, this is when we experience the full moon. So what happens here is that light coming from the sun shines on the moon, and they reflect these lights to the night part of the earth. Now, when this moon revolves until it gets to this position, that is when we come out in the night and we don't see any moon. It doesn't mean that the moon does not exist. What it means is that at this position, the moon is now within the shadow of the earth. And at this particular position, this is the penumbra region. So the moon experiences partial eclipse of the moon. But when it gets to this point, it is in the umbra region, and it now experiences total eclipse of the moon. This point also is partial eclipse. Now let's take a look at this position. There is a time when we come out at night, we notice that it is as if the moon is divided into two. What actually happens there is that the moon is within this axis. So half of the moon is now within the shadow of the earth, while the other half is outside the shadow of the earth. So that half that is outside the shadow of the earth is not experiencing any eclipse, while half of the earth experiences eclipse. So therefore, when we look at the moon, it looks as if the moon is divided into two. That is just all about lunar eclipse.